There's a reason you clicked on this video, and it's deeper than curiosity. You've been repeating affirmations, maybe for months, maybe for years, trying to shift your reality, trying to shift your self-image, trying to shift the energetic environment you live inside. You've whispered them in the morning, written them in journals, recited them before sleep, hoping they would finally click. But somewhere in your chest, somewhere behind your breathing, you've felt an uncomfortable truth. The words weren't landing, something wasn't shifting, something in you remained unconvinced, unmoved, unchanged. And the moment you admitted that to yourself, even quietly, your nervous system began searching for something more honest. That search is what brought you here. As you sit with that realization, notice the pull you feel in your awareness right now, the subtle sense that what you're about to hear is something you've been walking toward for a long time without knowing the exact language for it. You can feel a readiness inside you, a quiet but unmistakable openness that wasn't available before. It's the sense that this is not just another video about affirmations, it's the missing piece you've been circling without touching, and that recognition is not imagined, it's your future self nudging you toward a truth they've already lived. Because here's what no one told you: affirmations don't fail because you said them incorrectly or not often enough. They fail because most people try to use affirmations to overpower their internal state instead of understanding it. You've felt that, haven't you? The moment you say an affirmation and your stomach tightens slightly. The moment you write, "I am worthy," and your breath catches instead of releasing. The moment you whisper, "I am abundant," but your body feels hollow, hesitant, or disconnected. Those sensations weren't evidence that you were broken, they were evidence that your system was trying to protect you. Take a slow breath and feel how your ribs expand just a little more now. Something inside you recognizes this truth immediately. It feels like relief, but also like revelation. Because what if the problem was never the affirmation itself? What if the real issue has been the mismatch between the words you repeat and the state your system is in when you say them? Affirmations don't imprint because they sound beautiful. They imprint because your body trusts them. And trust cannot be commanded, it must be earned through familiarity, safety, and coherence. This is where your deeper journey begins. You're not here to learn how to do affirmations better. You're here because you've outgrown the surface-level approach entirely. You're here because you can feel that the version of you who once tried to force positive statements into your awareness is dissolving, and a new version of you, the one who understands the intelligence of your emotional field, is emerging. That emergence is happening right now, even if you can't fully articulate it yet. You can feel the shift in your breath, you can feel the widening in your chest, you can feel the presence of something truer settling in. And this is the key. Affirmations are not meant to persuade your mind. They are meant to regulate your system. They are not mental tools. They are somatic tools. They are not declarations of who you want to be. They are nervous system bridges that help you acclimate to the identity you're growing into. When affirmations fail, it's not because you didn't believe the words. It's because your body didn't have the capacity to hold them yet. This is the hidden problem and the hidden opportunity, because once you understand this, everything about your manifestation process changes. There is a part of you that already knows this. You've sensed the difference between saying an affirmation from a place of tension and saying it from a place of truth. You've felt the difference between forcing a new identity and allowing one to emerge. You've felt the resonance of statements that landed in your body like they were unlocking something. And you've felt the resistance of statements that your system rejected instantly. None of that was random. Your nervous system has been speaking to you all along through sensations, through breath patterns, through subtle emotional cues. You just didn't have the framework to interpret it until now. As you breathe into the space these insights are creating, you're beginning to understand why affirmations have been both powerful and powerless in your life. Their effectiveness has never been about repetition or positivity. Their effectiveness comes from alignment, from regulation, from coherence, from the moment your system feels this is safe enough to let in. And as this awareness rises in you, you can feel a subtle shift in your identity. You're no longer someone who tries to manifest from the surface. You're becoming someone who moves from depth, someone who understands the language of their own inner world, someone who knows the difference between mentally repeating something and energetically embodying it. This is your calling into the deeper territory of manifestation, the place where affirmations stop being words and start becoming frequencies, the place where your body becomes the instrument that carries your future, the place where identity changes, not because you say something, but because you become someone. And you can feel that becoming happening right now, can't you? That's the signal, that's the opening, that's the beginning of your shift, and from here, everything unfolds. As you sit with the realization that affirmations are not mental commands but somatic invitations, something inside you is beginning to soften. Not a dramatic change, not an emotional surge, something quieter. A slow release, like the loosening of a knot you didn't realize had tightened itself around your expectations. This is the inner unfolding, the moment where your system begins responding before your mind even has a chance to interpret what's happening. You can feel it in the way your breath moves through you, deeper now, less forced, less guarded. Your body isn't resisting this truth, it's welcoming it. And that's important to acknowledge because your system has spent years, maybe decades, bracing itself against words it didn't feel prepared to integrate. Every affirmation you repeated from a place of pressure was like knocking on a door the body wasn't ready to open. Not because the affirmation was wrong, not because you weren't worthy of the statement, but because your nervous system's first job is not to manifest your desires, it's to protect you from overwhelm. The inner unfolding begins the moment you recognize that protection, not as sabotage, but as intelligence. Let yourself feel into that. You've likely spent so much time interpreting resistance as failure. Those moments when your body tensed as you said, "I am enough." Those times your throat tightened when you whispered, "I am safe." Those days when your chest felt heavy as you wrote, "I am deserving of abundance." None of those sensations were indicators that the affirmations were untrue. They were indicators that your system was trying to keep you from confronting too much emotional intensity at once. Affirmations aren't blocked by disbelief, they're blocked by dysregulation. And as you recognize this, your entire internal landscape begins quietly shifting, because now, instead of fighting your body's signals, you're learning to listen to them. This is the moment where your awareness drops below the level of thought and begins perceiving the emotional field beneath your affirmations, the field that determines whether those words land or bounce away. You're beginning to feel the subtle difference between an affirmation that resonates and one that agitates, between a statement that your system can hold and one that exceeds its current capacity. This is the beginning of coherence, the place where your mind stops pressuring your body and begins partnering with it. Take another slow breath. Notice how your inhale doesn't catch the way it once did. Notice how your exhale carries a different quality, a release, a sense of space, a deeper presence. This is not performance, this is physiology. Your system is recalibrating in real time as it recognizes a truth that has been waiting to be spoken. Affirmations work only when they enter a regulated nervous system, not a perfect system, not a healed system, just a system that feels safe enough to let the words settle instead of rejecting them out of self-protection. And this is where the deeper unfolding happens, where you begin to understand that the effectiveness of any affirmation has nothing to do with how many times you say it. It depends entirely on the state you're in when you say it. A dysregulated system cannot absorb a new identity. It cannot metabolize unfamiliar emotional frequencies. It cannot integrate statements that contradict the survival patterns it has been using to keep you functional. When an affirmation threatens to pull you into an identity you don't yet have the internal support to hold, your body pushes back. And now, instead of seeing that pushback as a wall, you're seeing it as guidance. There's something empowering about that, isn't there? A sense of relief, a sense of spaciousness, a sense of, oh, that makes sense. You're no longer the person trying to brute force belief. You're becoming the person who understands the somatic language beneath belief. You're learning to feel the difference between forcing and allowing. You're beginning to understand that your emotional field is not an obstacle, it's a compass. And affirmations were never meant to override that compass. They were meant to realign it. This is why right now you may feel a subtle warmth spreading through your chest or a gentle softening around your sternum. Your body recognizes truth before your mind does. And the truth is that affirmations have never been about saying something until it becomes real. They've always been about creating enough internal steadiness that a new identity can grow inside you without resistance. Repetition without regulation is noise. Repetition with regulation becomes identity. The unfolding happening inside you now is the shift from "I must believe this" to "I can learn to feel safe with this." That shift is seismic. It changes your relationship with affirmation entirely. You're no longer using affirmations to convince yourself. You're using them to soothe, to stabilize, to create emotional conditions that make receiving possible. Your words are no longer demands, they are invitations. And invitations are far easier for the body to accept than commands. You may notice, even in this moment, a rising sense of compassion for yourself. A recognition that you hadn't failed at affirmations. Affirmations simply weren't designed to bypass your emotional reality. They were designed to meet it. And now that you're meeting yourself from this deeper place, your system is beginning to respond differently. You're beginning to soften into the truth that you don't need to force anything. The identity you've been affirming will emerge naturally once your system feels stable enough to hold it. This is your inner unfolding. This is the doorway. There is a point in every inner journey where understanding turns into transformation, not because you've learned something new, but because something inside you finally relaxes enough to let the truth in. You're crossing that threshold now. The ideas you've been hearing aren't just concepts anymore. They're beginning to feel like they belong to you. There's a resonance in your chest, a quiet recognition in your breath, an internal sense of, yes, this is what I've been missing. This is the deep shift, the moment your system stops bracing against new information and begins reorganizing around it. You've spent so much of your life trying to convince yourself of things your body wasn't ready to hold. You repeated affirmations to overwrite doubt, to suppress fear, to outrun the parts of you that felt unworthy or unseen. But the body doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to safety. And the very act of forcing affirmations created the opposite of what you intended. It signaled danger, not consciously but biologically. Your system interpreted those repeated high contrast statements as attempts to override its protective programming, and so it activated its defenses. You weren't doing anything wrong. You simply didn't know the language your nervous system speaks. As this realization settles deeper into your awareness, you can feel the emotional terrain inside you shifting. There is less urgency now, less self-blame, less confusion. You're beginning to see the intelligence behind your own resistance. You're beginning to understand why your body pushed back, why certain affirmations made you tense instead of calm, why you felt disconnected from words that were meant to empower you. And this understanding doesn't diminish you, it expands you. Because the moment you recognize your system's response as wisdom instead of failure, everything changes. Your affirmations were never meant to overpower your internal world. They were meant to support it. They were designed to create small, gentle openings in your emotional field, openings your body could step into at its own pace. But instead of offering invitations, you were issuing commands, and commands activate survival patterns, not transformation. This is the shift your system has been preparing you for, the understanding that affirmations don't work when they demand belief. They work when they create coherence. Coherence is the deep shift. It's the moment when a statement doesn't crash into your system. It settles into it. It's when your breath doesn't tighten trying to hold a new identity, it expands to make space for it. It's when a word doesn't challenge your sense of self, it gently aligns with it. This is why some affirmations feel false and others feel like a homecoming. Your system is not resisting the truth, it's resisting misalignment. And alignment is something you're beginning to feel in your body rather than imagine in your mind. Take a slow breath and let this next truth land softly. Your affirmations are not meant to leap you into a new identity, they're meant to guide you toward it. Step by step, state by state, breath by breath. The identity you're calling in doesn't arrive because you say the right words. It arrives because your system gradually becomes safe enough to embody them. You are not trying to become worthy. You're letting your system experience what worthiness feels like in small, digestible pieces. You are not trying to become abundant. You're letting your system acclimate to the energy of having more without bracing for loss or disappointment. You are not trying to become confident. You're letting your system experiment with the sensation of stability until it no longer feels foreign. This is the moment where your relationship with affirmations transforms. You're no longer viewing them as magic spells. You're seeing them as emotional calibrations, micro-adjustments that slowly shift the baseline of your nervous system until your identity reorganizes around a new truth. This is where your future self steps forward more clearly, not as a fantasy or an aspiration, but as an internal guide showing you how they once crossed this very threshold. You can feel them now, calmer, wiser, more grounded than the version of you listening to this. They are not urging you to repeat statements. They are inviting you to let the statements settle into your body the way a seed settles into the soil, quietly, gradually, naturally. The deep shift is happening the moment you stop trying to force belief and instead allow sensation to lead the way. You're learning to feel your way into new truths, not think your way into them. You're learning to follow the subtle cues of your body, the warmth spreading across your chest, the loosening around your jaw, the breath that drops a little deeper each time something resonates. These are not minor details. These are the gateways to transformation. Sensation is the language of the nervous system, and your affirmations only become real when they speak fluently in that language. What you're experiencing right now is the convergence of understanding and embodiment, the moment where your mind stops trying to control your evolution and your body begins participating in it. This is the foundation of true manifestation. When your words, your breath, your emotional field, and your internal safety align, the identity you've been affirming doesn't feel like a stretch anymore. It feels inevitable. And as that inevitability begins to take shape inside you, the next layer of truth rises to meet it, an even deeper revelation about what affirmations were always meant to do and how they guide you into the version of yourself that your future has already chosen. From here, everything begins to shift, and the path forward opens. There comes a moment in every inner transformation when the truth stops circling the edges of your awareness and lands directly at the center. You can feel that moment happening now. It's subtle but undeniable, like an internal click, a shift in posture, a quiet "oh" rising from a place deeper than thought. This is the turning point, the moment where everything you believed about affirmations rearranges, not because you're trying to understand it, but because your system is finally ready to hear the truth without bracing against it. Let yourself notice what your body is doing right now. There's a softening happening, not dramatic, not overwhelming, just a gentle loosening in places that once held tension without your permission. Maybe your breath is moving more freely, maybe your shoulders have dropped a few millimeters, maybe the space behind your sternum feels a little warmer. These aren't coincidences, they're indicators that your system is shifting from defense to receptivity, from pushing to allowing, from intellectual grasping to embodied recognition. The turning point always begins in the body, because here is the truth you're stepping into. Affirmations begin to work the moment you stop using them to fight your internal state and start using them to guide it. You're no longer repeating words in an attempt to persuade your system. You're speaking to your system the way you would speak to a child who has been frightened for far too long. Gently, softly, consistently, with presence instead of pressure. And your system responds to that difference immediately. The nervous system doesn't open in the presence of force. It opens in the presence of safety. And you are beginning to feel what safety with yourself actually feels like. Up until now, affirmations may have felt like a battle, your mind pushing one way, your body pulling another. But the turning point arrives when you stop trying to dominate your internal landscape and begin to collaborate with it. You're starting to understand that your body wasn't rejecting your affirmations out of stubbornness. It was rejecting them because the emotional frequency behind the words didn't match the reality of your internal state. The mismatch created tension. The tension created resistance. And resistance created the illusion that affirmations don't work. But the truth is that your body was always signaling the exact place where your healing and your expansion needed to begin. And now something inside you is saying, I'm ready. Not ready for perfection, not ready for instant transformation, but ready for honesty, ready for gentleness, ready for alignment. This readiness is not a mental decision, it's a physiological shift. You're not thinking your way into a new identity anymore, you're feeling your way into one. And as that shift unfolds, the affirmations you once struggled to believe begin to soften against your awareness in a completely different way. This is the part of the journey where your future self steps forward with clarity. Before, their guidance felt distant, faint, like a signal you could sense but not fully interpret. But now, with your system opening and your defenses lowering, that guidance feels more direct. You can feel the version of you who already embodies the truths you're affirming, not as a fantasy, but as an inner presence that has been waiting for you to become still enough to hear them. They are not pushing you, they are inviting you. And the invitation is simple. Stop trying to become me. Start allowing yourself to meet me. Feel into that. There's a profound relief in recognizing that your affirmations were never about forcing a new identity, they were about remembering one. And the moment you stop fighting yourself, remembering becomes effortless. The words you once repeated mechanically begin to resonate differently. They feel like something you're growing toward rather than something you're pretending to be. The tension dissolves, the resistance loosens, the body begins to trust. And where there is trust, transformation becomes inevitable. This is why the turning point is so powerful. You're not just shifting your understanding, you're shifting your identity. You're becoming someone who no longer uses affirmations as a shield, a distraction, or a last attempt to escape your current self. You're becoming someone who uses affirmations as a bridge, one that spans the distance between who you've been and who you are becoming. You're beginning to understand that affirmations don't work because they are repeated. They work because they match the emotional capacity of the person saying them, and your capacity is expanding now. You can feel that expansion in the quality of your breath, in the groundedness of your awareness, in the soft but steady recognition rising inside your chest. This is not a performance. This is the physiology of alignment. You're not trying to convince yourself of anything right now, and that is precisely why everything inside you is opening. You're not trying to force belief. You're allowing belief to grow roots where fear once lived. You're not trying to override old patterns. You're letting new ones emerge naturally as your system recalibrates. So this is your turning point. The moment where affirmations stop being an external effort and become an internal evolution. The moment where your words stop colliding with your emotional reality and begin harmonizing with it. The moment where your future self is no longer a distant concept, but a felt presence guiding you toward the identity that has been waiting for you all along. And as this shift continues to deepen, the next movement reveals the true purpose of affirmations and why, when used correctly, they don't just change your thoughts, they change your entire relationship with reality. As this deeper understanding settles through your system, you can feel yourself shifting into a new internal posture, one that isn't built on effort or hopeful repetition, but on resonance. Embodiment begins in moments like this, not with dramatic revelations, but with subtle recognitions. A breath that moves more fluidly, a chest that doesn't grip as tightly, a silence inside you that feels spacious instead of empty. These are not small changes, these are the markers of a self that is no longer fighting its way into a new identity, but relaxing into the possibility of becoming it. Embodiment is not about repeating an affirmation until your mind believes it. Embodiment is what happens when your body begins to organize itself around a new truth without force. And you can feel that beginning to take shape inside you now. The words that once felt confrontational, statements like, "I am worthy," "I am enough," "I am capable," no longer land with the same internal friction. Instead of colliding with your old patterns, they're beginning to settle, beginning to integrate, beginning to feel possible. And possibility is the first stage of embodiment. Take a slow breath and notice the quality of your inhale. Notice the warmth spreading across your sternum, the gentle widening behind your ribs. This is not just relaxation. This is coherence forming in real time. When the body feels safe, the emotional field stabilizes. When the emotional field stabilizes, the mind becomes receptive. And when receptivity emerges, affirmations transition from being external statements to internal signals. You're not trying to speak something into existence anymore. You're letting your system adjust to a version of you that already exists. This is the shift you've been searching for, the shift that most people never reach because they mistake affirmations for declarations instead of invitations. Embodiment happens when you stop trying to command a new identity and begin letting yourself acclimate to it. Your nervous system is learning the contours of a new emotional landscape. Your breath is learning how to support a self that doesn't collapse under the weight of old narratives. Your awareness is learning how to soften into expansion instead of retreating into the familiar patterns of the past. The deeper you allow this shift, the more clearly your future self steps forward. You can feel them now, not ahead of you on some distant timeline, but beside you, within you, woven into your awareness like a memory of who you've always been. Their presence doesn't feel aspirational, it feels strangely natural, because embodiment is not about changing into someone else, it's about revealing the version of you that has been buried beneath layers of survival programming. And here's the part that might surprise you. Affirmations were never meant to change your thoughts first. They were meant to change your physiology. When your body begins to recognize the emotional texture of your future identity, everything else rearranges naturally. You start making decisions from a different place. You start interpreting situations differently. You start responding instead of reacting. You start choosing from a self that is more grounded, more capable, more aligned with the truth you've been trying to affirm. This is why embodiment feels calm instead of forced. The identity you're stepping into doesn't feel inflated or imaginary, it feels like it fits. Let yourself feel the shift that's occurring in this very moment. Something is anchoring inside you. Something is reorganizing. The words that once felt heavy or unrealistic are now beginning to feel like something you're growing toward, rather than something you're trying to leap into. This is the nervous system adapting to new emotional data. This is your emotional field stabilizing around a new baseline. This is the very beginning of an identity shift, not through force, but through alignment. Most people never experience this because they never stop long enough to listen to the body's cues. They think repetition equals transformation, but repetition without regulation creates tension. Regulation creates capacity, and capacity is what allows affirmations to transform from intellectual concepts into embodied truths. You're beginning to sense that capacity now. You're beginning to feel the internal spaciousness required for self-worth, abundance, confidence, or love to become lived experiences rather than abstract affirmations. And as you breathe into this new awareness, the truth becomes undeniable. You are no longer performing affirmations. You are becoming the person they were meant to guide you toward. You're not chasing a future identity. You're remembering it. You're reconnecting with the part of you who already knows how to feel worthy, how to feel abundant, how to feel grounded in who you are. That reconnection may feel soft, quiet, almost easy, and that ease is the sign that embodiment has begun. This is why everything feels different now. The struggle, the resistance, the internal conflict, they've softened. Not because you forced anything, but because you finally aligned with the mechanism that makes affirmations real. You're not trying to convince yourself of a new truth. You're allowing your system to experience it in a way that feels safe enough to keep. Embodiment is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of your becoming. And as this inner shift deepens, the next movement reveals how affirmations reshape reality itself once they are no longer words, but identity. There is a sensation, soft, unmistakable, almost reverent, that begins to fill your awareness when your system finally understands something your mind has been trying to make sense of for years. It doesn't feel like excitement, it doesn't feel like motivation. It feels like a widening, a gentle, grounded opening, a quiet confidence that doesn't need to speak to be felt. That's what's happening inside you right now. Not a spark, but a settling. Not a push, but a return. A return to your own internal rhythm, to your own inner intelligence, to the truth that affirmations were never meant to change you. They were meant to show you who you already are beneath the noise of old survival patterns. Take a breath and notice how different it feels compared to when you began. Your inhale has more space. Your exhale has less urgency. There is a steadiness forming inside you, not a performance, not a temporary high, but a deeper alignment with the version of you who knows that transformation doesn't happen through force. It happens through coherence, and coherence is beginning to take root inside you now. You can feel it in the softness behind your sternum, in the gentle warmth gathering near your diaphragm, in the slowing of your internal pace. Your system is no longer bracing against the affirmation of who you are becoming. It's preparing to receive it. This is the returning to the understanding that your body has always been your gateway to manifestation, returning to the truth that your emotional field is the architecture your future builds itself upon, returning to the recognition that affirmations aren't magic because they're repeated, and they're magic because they become felt. And you are feeling them differently now, not as demands, not as attempts to override your current state, but as invitations. Invitations into a self that feels more grounded, more congruent, more whole. As you take in this moment, you may notice something else rising inside you, a sense of compassion. Compassion for the version of you who once tried to use affirmations as armor, who tried to outrun their fear or shame or uncertainty by insisting on a new identity before they felt ready to hold it. Compassion for the version of you who believed that the problem was a lack of discipline when the truth was simply a lack of safety. Compassion for the younger you who said words they wished they could believe, not knowing their system was doing its best to protect them from emotional overwhelm. Let that compassion flow through you now. Let it be the balm that softens the last remnants of self-judgment. That younger version of you was never failing. They were never doing it incorrectly. They were navigating a landscape they didn't yet have the language for. And today you've given them that language, you've given them understanding, you've given them relief. And in doing so, you've given yourself the space to grow. You're stepping out of this moment with a different awareness, not the awareness of someone who needs affirmations to work, but someone who understands how to work with themselves, someone who knows when the body feels ready to receive a new truth, someone who can sense the subtle yes or not yet inside their emotional field, someone who can feel which affirmations soothe and which overwhelm, someone who no longer uses words to escape the present, but to gently guide it toward a future that feels aligned rather than forced. And this is where the true power of affirmations emerges. Once they stop being statements you impose on yourself and become expressions of who you're becoming, reality responds differently. Opportunities align more easily, choices feel clearer, interactions feel more grounded. You become someone whose external world begins to mirror their internal stability. This is not coincidence. This is coherence. This is the manifestation process unfolding naturally once your system no longer rejects the frequency you're calling in. As your awareness integrates these truths, notice the presence of your future self again. They feel closer now, not as an image or an ideal, but as an inner companion whose energy is blending with your own. There is no gap between who you are and who you're becoming. There is only a transition, and transitions don't happen through repetition, they happen through alignment. You are aligning now, not with a fantasy, but with a truer version of yourself who has been waiting patiently for you to feel safe enough to rise. So as this transmission comes to a close, feel the steadiness in your body, feel the coherence in your breath, feel the spaciousness in your chest. You are not stepping into the world as someone who hopes their affirmations will work. You are stepping into the world as someone who understands why they finally can. This is your return, a return to your body, a return to your inner wisdom, a return to the truth that manifestation begins not with words, but with the self that speaks them. And now, to anchor this shift, declare this into the field and into the comments below as a signal to your future self that you are ready to integrate what has awakened within you. I allow my system to believe the truth of who I am becoming. This is where the words you've spoken finally find a place to live inside you.